Yontah pravesha mama vachamimam prashuttam Sanjeevayatyakila shaktidhara swadhamna Anyamscha hastacharana shravanatwagadim Pranannamo bhagavate purushaya tubhyam.
So, we wanted to do something very interesting about this beautiful topic of being in the mood of service. What does that mean? What does that look like? And how to best be engaged in this mood of service. And how the greatest joy in life can be derived through being in this divine mood of service. We would like to unpack this concept of being in a mood of service or an attitude of service. So many times when there is an opportunity or there is some service being done, or we are asked to do some service, we are often not quite sure how to feel. Sometimes we feel like they're just engaging us, or maybe they're exploiting us, maybe they're abusing us, maybe they just want to take advantage of our honest, soft, kind desire to help and serve others. So we have multiple reactions whenever we are engaged in particular service. And one of the common themes of service is that it becomes something that is very transactional. I don't know what's going on. Someone's volume is very loud. Okay, there we go. So it seems like all exchanges in this world, including this principle of Seva, becomes very transactional. And you may have experienced it in your life that when relationships are transactional, then there isn't so much satisfaction. It remains somewhat superficial. It remains somewhat still unsure, maybe distrusting. So those are all components of transactional relationships: dissatisfaction, feeling of incompleteness. For example, when you have a transactional relationship with your parents, it doesn't go very deep, and you don't feel fulfilled. It's hard to feel fulfilled when the relationships are transactional. Now, these transactional relationships have different levels of transactions as well. Some we just, once in a while, some a little bit more, some are a little bit deeper. The transaction is still the main component of these relationships, and that's why it remains unfulfilled. And you may notice also in our relationships in society today, even with our partners, marriages, when the relationship is transactional, maybe a deeper level of transactional, there still remains something inside of us that makes us feel alone, makes us feel like something is missing. There's some sense of feeling of emptiness and some space that is still vacant for something else. And that is still due to this principle of transactional relationships. I will not get into the different grades of transactional relationships, but just discussing this principle of transactional relationship. And then we realize that there is something deeper about Seva, because what Seva does is not just transactional, it is transactional and transformational. That is what makes Seva, the mood of service, so different. Because when we are in that mood of service, then we are not just cooking for someone, but we are cooking for someone or engaging with someone with love, with compassion, with with uh, with sincerity. And so that part of the relationship changes and it transforms the recipient and you. So both parties are benefited from that relationship of seva. Now, an example of that would be something like, say, a newly married couple. They're very young. They're 18, 19 years old. They're very young and they have a child. The likelihood of an 18, 19-year-old couple having a lot of experience in parenting may not always be the case. They may not have a lot of experience because they're still very young and they haven't lived a very long life. So what happens in that the child and the parents, they are both engaged in an exchange of a relationship that is both material and spiritual. And therefore, that relationship becomes transformational. You'll notice the young couple will learn so much from their children. And the children will also learn so much from the father, from the child. Has any of you experienced this? Deb, would you say there is something spiritual about that? We learn from our kids and the kids learn from us. Anyone else agree with this, that component is there? So this is called transformational, an example of a transformational relationship. And that happens through the medium of seva. It's very, very... Can you tell Amit Balaram Prabhu to mute? I can hear my voice. We have... Okay, thank you so much. So this transformational relationship is when there is a component, 3 components. One is called dana, where we give something, and it is done with compassion, karuna. Karuna means compassion. And the third component is prema. So dana means to give something, and that giving could be something very deep, as in giving yourself. But you give it with compassion. You offer that with compassion and with love, which is prema. When you put three of these components into an action, then that action is considered to be seva. And that seva is no longer just transactional, but it is transformational. So this is one aspect of seva that I wanted you to experience when you are sharing with one another. How some of you are sharing, when I was dropping into the call, of how you felt though there was something more than just giving and doing something. There was something deeper. And that depth comes from having this very important 3 characteristics: dana, giving something, and karuna, doing it with compassion. Hey Mike, thank you for joining us. We have Mike with us. You're not able to see him. He is a very dear friend of Raghunath, and he's here as one of the teachers teaching Krav Maga to the monks. So thank you, Mike Prabhu, for joining us. So there's 3 components: dana, karuna, and prema. To give something and do it with compassion and love. And that's what makes everything transformational. So we discussed, thank you, Bruce. We discussed transactional versus transformational. And now we also want to understand, what does it mean to serve, this mood of servitorship? And that I would like to present it to you in 3 categories. And those 3 categories, you could call this journey as ego transcending practice. The Seva is also known as the ego transcending practice. And within this, there's 3 categories that I would like to bring out to you. One is to understand that the service that we are doing, the Seva that we're doing, we are actually not the doers. The Seva that we're doing, we are simply attending. To who? To the Divine Creator. The Divine Creator is continuously engaged in serving and providing for all of us. I think one principle, on the French call yesterday, I was sharing with Kamala Devi, that when it gets cold outside, the mother does not need to be told by the child that it is cold outside, I need a jacket. I need some warm shoes. Haripriya, has your children ever asked you when they were little toddlers, can you please provide us some jacket because it's going to be really cold outside, it's going to snow, and get us some warm boots? You just do it. And the reason you just do it is because as a mother, you know what the child needs and you are prepared ahead of time. So similarly, the Supreme Creator knows everything that we need, and everything is already provided for. And what we are simply doing is being an instrument. So the word that we use is an attendant. You're attending to everything that has already been given to all of us. So that is the principle number 1 of understanding how Seva is an ego transcending practice. And when we understand that we are attendants in this beautiful cosmic creation as individual living beings, then naturally we will cultivate the mood of proper service. And the second principle to this is to act under someone else. So we have to come to understand this mood that everything that I'm doing is actually done and ordained by the Divine. In all reality, everything is simply being done by the Divine, and we are simply little instruments walking this beautiful planet. Someone may say, oh, that sounds a little bit too simplistic. And the point is, it is actually quite simple. Just as when you eat your food, we don't have a big machine to grind the food and digest the food. All we have to do is put that food in our mouth, and this beautiful machine called the human body has its own mechanisms to break down the food and turn it around and turn it into energy where we're able to function and do so many incredible things. So this is how we understand that all actions in this world are being done under another being, another divine arrangement. So this is principle number 2. Because the minute we think that we are the ones that are actually doing the work, then we lose the spiritual benefit of the act. Because how can you say that you are doing something when in all reality it is all provided for by someone else? There is an element of ego that is playing into this picture where we think we are the doer of everything in this world. So this is principle number 2, that all actions that we're doing are actions that is being guided through you. So you're working and serving under someone, and that under someone is the divine being in our different capacities. So that is point number 2. And point number 3 is accepting the natural human tendency to do seva, or this, what we call, is our duty. And another word in Sanskrit is called our dharma. Everyone in this world has a unique component to their dharma, which is called seva. Whether we like it or not, there's always this component where we are always going to be serving someone. So understanding this psychophysical nature of all beings, that we are created for this important exchange that is fundamental to all species of life, which is to serve and nurture one another. So this is principle number 3, acceptance of duty or dharma, or accepting our psychophysical nature as servant of others on this planet. We are never the masters, but we are simply the servant. And in Sanskrit, the word is dasa, dasa, anudasa, servant of the servant. That means we are always trying to see how to cultivate the mood of serving others. And this is what we have been discussing for, I think, few classes now. It's called the island of Dasya Ras. Dasya means cultivating the mood of servitude, like understanding that we are servants in this beautiful cosmic creation. So just briefly recapping, so I don't run out of time. We discussed the transactional and transformational relationship and the difference between the two. Transactional is material and is not fulfilling. Transformational has a component of material, but it transcends that into the spiritual realm. And then we talked about how this seva has 3 components. It's done with dana, to give something, and done with compassion, karuna, and the third word is prema, with love, with kindness. And how this process is an ego transcending process. Seva is an ego transcending process. And then we discussed there's 3 layers to this process. The mood is understanding that we are attendants in this planet. Second is understanding that we are acting under the divine. And third is accepting that it is our psychophysical nature, it is our dharma, it is our duty. So in conclusion, if you want to test yourself, whether you are on the transformational side of things, then the way to do it is, the test is your taste for doing service. That is the test. If you have taste for serving others, then you know you have moved from transactional to transformational. And this is our sharing for today. If there's any comments or questions, we're discussing the mood of service. So there is a mellow in service, because it's a very beautiful question you ask. When you are, the goal of this island is that there is a complete absorption. When you become fully absorbed in this mood of service, then everything in this world is completely transformed. You do not see any obstacles. You do not see any impediments. You do not see anything other than the divine in every aspect of the creation. And that's what absorption happens. Because you ask, I'm going to tell you a short story. I was told that Diane likes stories. So I can see Diane's face. So I'm going to tell you a small story. This is a story of a young prince who was 5 years old, and he was practicing bhakti. And his name was Prahlad. He was born in a family where his father had tremendous, deep-rooted demoniac tendencies. And he was so powerful due to his overpowering demoniac tendencies that he had so much control all over the universe. But his child, 5-year-old child, was practicing this bhakti, the path of understanding the transcendental divine love that's situated within the heart. And he was so absorbed in his loving relationship of servitude towards the divine that his father was disturbed by this, and he wanted his son eliminated one way or another. And he threw his son off the cliff, tried to get his son trampled by mad elephants, every possible way, but somehow there was always some sort of divine intervention in his life. And he was so absorbed, he did not notice any of this. And finally, when his father tried to put him in a cage with wild, venomous serpents, and when he goes in there, he's looking at the snakes as though they are Anantashesh, who is the divine incarnation of all serpents. And so what he is seeing is every obstacle in his life as the divine interface. And he is seeing how every object, there is God in it. There is divine in every object. And this is what absorption means. That when we are so absorbed in service, that nothing else in this world is bigger than this act of following our dharma, of doing seva. I like this beautiful saint in Vrindavan, Nim Karoli Baba. He always talked about service. That is what he always said. Just serve. Just feed everyone. Just love everyone. Just serve everyone. He kept it really simple. And he kept it simple for a reason, because it is very simple. But we have a tendency to make things difficult, because when we are sitting in our mind, then we have a tendency to sometimes complicate things that are actually not so complicated. And this is what is being shown in this beautiful story in the Puranas of Prahlad Maharaj. So this is what the conclusion of Seva is, Keshavi Devi. Complete absorption, that nothing else is greater than this, being an attendant of the divine and serving others. Does that make any sense? Okay. Any other questions before we... The seventh island of the heart is Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyamatma Nivedanam. This is a verse from the Puranas that explains the 9 islands of the heart. Of course, we are only covering, I think we're on the 7th island. We have two more to go. Yes. 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 Dasya ras, the mellow of the attitude of service. Rasa means the mellow, the juice. Whenever you go to an Indian restaurant, you'll find they have something called a curry. They have vegetables and there is curry. And that in Sanskrit is called ras. And that is what makes the curry taste that good, because it's that juicy part. That's what makes it tasty. Okay, we have Nate Prabhu. Here I have a question. The mind will give us trouble when trying to perform seva. Even if we know we are getting something out of it, even if that something is really good for us, how can we get past that and reach transformational? This process of switching from transactional to transformational, it's quite an art, and it requires an elevation of consciousness. And that is why in our Sangha, we have something called the sadhana, daily practice. And you'll notice as you do your daily sadhana, that there is a shift in consciousness that happens. And when that shift in consciousness happens, then it switches from transactional to transformational. And that is why we have sadhana and seva and sangha, our 3 legs of our community that we are building worldwide, is seva, sangha, and sadhana. It's a triangle. And that triangle is very important to keep in mind. That if you just keep not doing any sadhana and just keep having relationships without proper consciousness, those relationships are bound to cause disappointment, and eventually we will give up on trying to even have transactional relationship because it's so painful. Transactional relationships are painful. If not today, tomorrow it'll hurt. If not today, when that person leaves this world, it will hurt because it is transactional. But if we do sadhana, then we will have proper consciousness to understand the deeper element in all exchanges, and that is the exchange of putting the heart into all your actions. When you put spirit into all the rituals, all the activities throughout our day, then it becomes spiritual. When a relationship between 2 people, it transcends beyond ritual, which is transactional, and you put heart into it, then it becomes spiritual. When you put spirit into it, and then it becomes spiritual. So therefore, the key component of this is to somehow create your own sadhana, or we have a prescribed sadhana we have given everyone. That will help to elevate our consciousness where we can transcend from transactional to transformational. I don't know if that made sense to you, Nate Prabhu, and to all of you. I don't know if I complicated things even more or made it a little bit more clearer. Any more thoughts or questions or doubts? Or And the way to see that you have to change the lens that we are looking at all our struggles and difficulties with. When we change the lens and we use the lens that is filtered through a higher consciousness, then we'll be able to see our struggles very differently. They will no longer be struggles. They will be stones, big stepping stones to the path of self-realization. They will be stepping stones for success in life. They will be stepping stones to shine and make the world a better place. So, short answer to your beautiful question is the lens that we look at all our struggles with. Because as you remember, I just mentioned, the mother knows that winter is coming. So she's already prepared with jackets. All you have to do is grab that jacket and put it on. She's brought everything home for you, all of it, for all the kids. So in this way, once we understand that everything is already provided for us, and how can we use all of that in our spiritual growth? And that is called the divine lens. In one of the yoga texts called the Samhitas, Brahma Samhita, there is a very beautiful text and it says, Preman Jana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. I'm just giving the Sanskrit not because I want you to fully understand just off the bat. It takes a little bit of time. But the point I'm making is that in this yoga text very beautifully explains that when we change the lens with which we see the world will be a completely different place. The world that we see with struggle and all of the chaos in it, it is the most beautiful creation of God. Because there is so much divinity that is all-pervasive in every aspect of life. So I don't know if I made any sense to you, Danny, but I was just hoping to shed a little bit more light into your question. If you hold on to your sadhana every single day, like Diane is giving us such nice reports about her sadhana, you'll notice the joy will erupt like a volcanic eruption from your heart. When that volcano erupts, there is no stopping. And that joy will affect everyone around you, everything around you. So this is why we have our daily sadhana practices. Thank you all very much. It is such a pleasure and a treat to be with all of you. And please hold your heart tight and live from your heart space. Namaste, everyone.